So I've been having trouble breathing these days. Nah, actually, I've been having trouble breathing since I was 3 weeks old when I was first diagnosed with asthma, to go along with these crippled little feet. My mother cried. My father wondered how I'd ever play ball. I was born at 12:26 p.m. on a hot and humid July afternoon in Chicago, where they tell me it's hard to breathe, but I've always found Chicago to be quite lovely, or rather, Chicago's the only city I personally want to breathe in. Despite the asthma and the 15 operations for the club feet, I led a normal physical life in youth, beyond the times, of course, I detoured to the emergency room at 3 a.m., several times a month, and in came the tubes, and my mother cried. And at night she'd lay awake, trying to hear from the other room the rhythm of my breathing. She barely slept, it seemed, in youth. But this is the texture of life, which I love so fucking much. And if my breathing was as strong as her, I imagine I'd be getting on just fine. At 10, I had my first cigarette and beer. It was a Pall Mall unfiltered in an old style, in a can. My dad gave them to me. The White Sox were on. The Big Hurt was up to bat at one point. Afterwards, my father said, "Now, kid, go home and tell your mother what you just did." I did, and my mother cried. And then she turned and smacked the living shit out of me. I began smoking full-time at 12, while at my first military school. And then I stopped smoking when I was 19. And I remember running down the streets while living in Columbus, Ohio. I was shit-faced. I was laughing and running and screaming to no one in particular. I can do this. I can fucking do this because I quit smoking, which was run and breathe at the same time. I began smoking 2 weeks later. Then I moved to San Francisco when I was 24, which without a doubt is one hell of an awful place. And my smoking increased. I loathed that city. I was up to 2 packs a day. I was using my inhaler now more than ever. In the city, my body soon began breaking down. One should go through an inhaler, once every 6 months. I was going through them one a month. In November of 2008, it seemed I had a minor breakdown. I invited my friend Logan over to shave my head. When he left, I looked at my reflection, and of course I was horrified. And then at my beautiful hair that laid all strewn below me. And then back at my bald reflection, and I wondered alone, would it really be so odd if I gathered it all in my hands, all this hair, and put it back on my head, with some Elmer's glue or whatnot? But I did not. I quit smoking the next morning, cold turkey. I decided to move back to Chicago at some point. And then I was out on the town one night, and a rowdy man was being rowdy, and I said to him as he was poking and poking at me, one more month, and I'll never have to put up with stupid California shits like you. Then I turned my back, and as I was talking to a friend, he took my scarf and quickly wrapped it around my neck several times and began strangling me, pinning me to the ground, and scissor held my legs so I couldn't move at all. I was like a little pig on the ground, a little hog-tied little piglet. His friend kept pushing people away that were trying to help, so it didn't look like anyone was going to help there. I was having trouble breathing. I remembered this feeling. It was a comforting feeling, in a way, only because I've always known this feeling of this gasping to grasp to breathe, when there's nothing there that your body will allow you to breathe in. I was used to this. Then I started going in and out of consciousness, and I remembered this feeling. Yes, which frightened me to my bones, because this meant, boy, you're breathing as an end. As in you end now, my friend. And there was metal playing. I think it was Slayer or something akin to them. A terrible soundtrack, obviously, to the scene. I was losing consciousness. I could feel all the pressure building up in my eyes. I was staring at the floor that was sticky, and there were my discarded toothpicks everywhere on the ground that I chewed so I wouldn't smoke. But here I was on the ground, face down and red-faced and gasping again to breathe. And there was a scarf around my neck that just kept tightening, and I honestly thought that this was going to be the end, and I was afraid. I was afraid for the first time in my life since I was afraid when I was a child in the hospital, hooked up to the tubes to my lungs, or when my left lung partially collapsed at 14, when I was held up at gunpoint in Uptown at 23, and when I buried my friend with my own hands on a farm out east, or when that glass went through my back and almost pierced through my lung at 27. I now want to stop breathing while here on the floor and being strangled by a schmuck, an ugly one at that, while shitty fucking Slayer music played, seemingly my last song. Because really, if I'm to end, to be suffocated by a schmuck, I would prefer it to be at the hands, obviously, of a handsome schmuck. And while Dean Martin's Ain't That a Kick in the Head, or perhaps Volare was playing, I'd like a measure of happiness and dignity to my strangulation. And obviously, of course, the most important, please for the love of the big gimme in the sky, don't end me here in goddamn San Francisco. But he did not suffocate me, as he was pried off eventually by several people, thank God. I left San Francisco in July of '09 and came home to Chicago. Of course, I was elated to be home, so happy to finally breathe again as an inhabitant in the city that was my home. I began smoking again, for no real reason, nor desire. No clue why, but I tell myself I will quit at 30, which is in 2 months. And now I have noticed my breathing worsening again, and this troubles me. And now my inhaler has shrunk in size. I've been going through my inhaler now at a rate of 2 per month. That is 400 steroidal puffs each 30 days. And let me tell you, that is a lot of needing help to breathe. And my mother cries. But I tell her not to worry, because, hey, ma, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. And we all cry. And of course we all die, right, sometime. And the body, I tell her, well, it's obviously, it's just a machine. And like all machines, it's designed to be abused. Abuse it to see how far we can push it, to see if it can exceed itself, exceeding excess, or rather in our own excess. And so we push forward within our bodies and push our limits, and so we move, motherfucker, move, as I always say, because our time is dying away, as we are dying, and time really is just dying, and we might as well just keep pushing forward and keep on laughing on until, well, our bodies push back, and then just push that motherfucker even harder. Because we can only attempt to assert our authority and make it known that our bodies are our little pig bitches, which they're not, and we all know this, and it's okay, it really is. It's all okay, all this struggling to breathe and this moving forward in what seems to be a perpetual non-movement, but is a non-movement, which I love so much and so hard, which is the big hurt of it all, the big hurt of life. So I only keep pressing on until my body will one day say, Arm, my friend, good sir, it's been my pleasure, but it's time for the body plop. Now we end, my friend, now we just end.